out, my name is Johanna Dupre. I'm a natural resources educator with UW Extension. And I'm so excited that you all could join us for this program where we're going to talk about some of the cost share programs in Wisconsin and how the application process goes. So just starting out, I'm going to quickly have my colleagues at UW Extension and our speakers just introduce themselves to you all, kind of tell you what they do and where they do it. So Tony, do you want to start off?
Yeah, thanks, Johanna. Hi, everybody. My name is Tony Johnson. I'm a forestry outreach specialist with UW-Madison Extension. I also get the pleasure of running the maple syrup program. So please hit me up, anybody who's in sugaring season, if you got any questions. But my home office is in southeastern Wisconsin at the Horicon Marsh, and you'll see if you look at the participants menu that I'm going to be recording the presentation tonight. So just everybody know that if you got your camera on, it will be part of the video recording that we'll share with the attendees after. So thanks, Johanna. I'll pass it to Keith.
Hi, everybody. My name's Keith Phelps, also with UW-Madison Extension. I'm a forestry outreach specialist in the Winnebago County offices, so just north of Oshkosh. I primarily work on kind of promoting education around carbon markets in Wisconsin, as well as thinking about ways that we can promote healthier, more vibrant woods as conditions change in our woods. And I'll pass it off to Jeff.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jeff Sorensen. I'm the private lands forester for Marathon County. Cover the east half of that county based out of Wausau, and I'll be talking to you about the Wisconsin Forest Landowner Grant Program tonight, and just give you the ins and outs on how to sign up and the whole process you'll need to go through. So, and I guess Dan.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dan Myers. I am the Northeast Area Forester for the Natural Resource Conservation Service. My job entails primarily advising our conservationists that work in the field on best forestry practices for conservation for private lands.
Great, thank you all. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of background on, why we're having these webinars and what we're hoping to accomplish with them. So my primary role with UW Extension is managing the Wisconsin Stewardship Plan project. And I definitely recognize some of the names on this call. So I know some of you all have gotten plans with us. And so for the folks that have gotten plans, I'm hoping that this will help you get ready to take your next step after you have your plan. And for the folks that maybe are in process of getting your plan, I'm hoping that this will help you hit the ground running a little bit. For those of you who maybe don't have a plan, you're still very welcome, and I hope you get something great out of this presentation. But we are always open to helping other folks get forest stewardship plans. So if after this you think that that's the direction you'd like to go, feel free to reach out to me and we can chat about that. So just kind of talking about the schedule or how this is going to go. In a minute here, I'm going to have a quick couple of polls that I'll ask you all to fill out. This helps us get to know who you all are. And that's kind of going to be the first step. And then after that, I will pass it off to Dan and then Jeff to give you some more information about their programs. And then we will end by heading into breakout groups where you all can kind of choose which program you maybe have questions about or stop by both of them, and they can try to help answer some of your questions. So just quickly, Keith, do you want to pop up the first poll? So if you can, we'd love it if you fill this out quick. And yeah, I'll just give us a little bit to fill out the poll. You just kind of want to know what you're thinking about for your next project, and where your property is, and maybe how confident you feel in doing some of the forest management. Okay, so it looks like the poll has kind of settled down. So Keith, do you want to end this one? Yeah, so it looks like people are thinking about invasive species quite a bit. That doesn't surprise me at all. And we have kind of a spread of folks, central Wisconsin, but also in the south and the northwest, which is great. Yeah, and so it looks like we have, a spread of folks, but a lot of beginners, which is great. We're hoping this will help you all. Awesome, thank you. Can you pop in the second poll for me? So as a part of UW Extension, we are required to ask about demographic information. This is, however, a voluntary survey. So if you would prefer not to respond, that is a legitimate answer as well. So we just ask these questions. And this just kind of tells us who we're working with. Mm. 15 more seconds and then we'll get to the good stuff. Okay, so it looks like the poll has kind of settled down. So Keith, I think you can end that one. We don't necessarily need to share the results of that one. It's more for us. Well, great. Now we can get on to the fun stuff. So I am going to pass it over to Dan first to chat about some of the NRCS programming and that they offer.
Alrighty. Thank you, Joanna. I'm going to try and share my screen. We're going to see if that works, I suppose. Oops. All right. Alrighty. Can everyone see this?
That's
Good.
perfect.
Alrighty. Yeah. I like to cost share programs with NRCS. Like I said before, my name's Dan Myers. I'm the Northeast Area Forester for the agency, and yeah, happy to be here. So what is NRCS? We are the Natural Resource Conservation Service. If you've been around on this earth for a while, you might remember the Soil Conservation Service. We were founded around when the Dust Bowl happened to give technical assistance to farmers on how to essentially farm sustainably. We've changed since then. About in the 1990s, we changed our name to the Natural Resource Conservation Service to be more encompassing to all landowners. So our mission is to help people help the land. And we really look at working lands, which I'll get into a little bit, but that's any land that's essentially productive in any way, shape, or form. We provide technical and financial assistance. So if you have some management you're looking to do, and you're looking just for some advice on how to do it, our conservationists can assist you and also provide potentially financial assistance. We are a agency under the Department of Agriculture, and we operate directly under Farm Bill funding, supporting America's working lands. So that could be anywhere from, agriculture all the way to a farmstead and to forested land. So trees are a crop. So that's kind of what qualifies us under working lands. We invest that money in planning and implementation of conservation practices. So the main four programs that we offer, we're going to talk about the Environmental Quality and Science Program and the Conservation Stewardship Program in depth today, but I just want to outline kind of all four of them. So we have the Wetland Reserve Easement Program. If you got some farmland that formerly was a wetland, there's a program for it. If you have an ag field that you're looking to turn into set aside or wildlife habitat, prairie planting, and it's a fairly large acreage, Conservation Reserve Program will pay your kind of what a farmer would roughly pay you for the land anyways, but you put it into permanent cover that benefits your soil and the critters around your property. Next two are the Environmental Quality and Science Program. This is what's probably more tailored to most of the folks on this call. It's a variable 1 to 10 year program to implement specific projects on your property, whether it be tree planting, a harvest, invasive species management, anything you really can name. There's probably a practice for it under EQIP. I consider this kind of the starter program. So if you've never worked with us before, this is a really good place to start. It kind of gets some conservation, under your boots, and really gets you acquainted with how we operate as an agency. Once you've done an EQIP contract or two, Conservation Stewardship Program's a great opportunity. It's a fixed 5-year program to maintain and advance your level of stewardship. So essentially, you get cost share for maintaining what you're already doing on top of some additional practices. And so I kind of consider this one the graduate program, more or less. So who do you contact learn about these programs or get involved? So we have a local field office assigned to every single county and every single state in America. So I know this map is kind of blurry, you probably can't see it, but every single red dot is a local field office. Each field office has multiple trained conservationists in it that can help you kind of further your conservation on your property. If you do stop in a field office and maybe there's someone that's not trained in forestry or wildlife habitat, we have specialists at the area level and at the state level that can assist with your planning process on your property. Good example is myself. I'm the area forester for the Northeast, so everything in green up there. I assist the conservationists in the best planning possible for our landowners' properties. So if you're looking to stop into one of those local field offices, I put this together. Hopefully it works. Kind of the best way to find where or who to call about your county. So quick Google search, find an NRCS service center. You get two options here. The first link's broken right now, but the second one works just as fine. Hopefully we're kind of all in Wisconsin, but pick your state. I'm just going to pick Marathon right now because that's kind of where I reside currently. So, yeah. Then you're going to get a few options here. Make sure you click Natural Resource Conservation Service. And then boom, you have your contact information for the field office, phone number to call, and also the supervisor for that area. So pretty slick, just a few clicks to find out, where your local field office is. If you're an absentee landowner, like for example, maybe you live in Green Bay and you have a property in Forest County, look to talk to your Forest County local service center because that's where they're going to kind of administer your application. So yeah, getting started. So kind of what I just outlined, stop by your local NRCS office. Discuss the vision of what you're looking to do on your land. Okay, are you looking to treat invasive species? Are you looking to do tree planting? Whatever the case may be. That conservationist will probably request a site walk, site visit to really see everything in person. Depending on the time of year you go, it might be soon, it might be a couple months down the road, but just have that conversation. At that time, they might hand you an application. Maybe potentially after the site visit, they'll hand you an application, whatever works out best for that field office. They'll give you a bunch of additional eligibility paperwork you'll have to fill out, just our proper process. You and the conservationist will determine what program fits your needs, whether maybe the conservation stewardship program suits you better or EQIP does. Really depends on the practices and what your vision is. And then that conservationist will use their expertise to create you a plan that works for you and our programs. After that plan is created, it gets what we call ranked. So kind of the quality of the project, what it deems how good of a project is for conservation. We get that number and pretty much send it to our state office, and they deem if we should be funding it or not. If you get funded, the applicant will be contacted and awarded a contract if you wish to sign what we're proposing. If you do so, you're ready to implement your plan. So you'll have everything provided to you on how exactly to do every single practice that you're under contract for with us. And you always can call your local NRCS conservationist or representative if you have questions, concerns, anything about your contract. And then lastly, once it's done, we send someone out to check to make sure you did your work. And if it looks good, we compensate you for the work via our cost share rates. So, what can you do to prepare? So get a forest management plan. I think most of you on the call are at least interested, have one, or are in the process of, so that's a really good start. For our programs, anything on forested land that we contract needs a forest management plan, and that practice to be recommended in that plan. So if you don't have a plan, you really can't do anything. So that's kind of the first step. Before you go into the field office, create some goals, or at least outline your goals that you have for your property. Is that recreational? Are you a big hunter? Are you a big birder? Do you just like wildlife on your property? Are you interested in timber production? Just general property health. Are you interested in restoring your property to what it historically state before we were here? Or just generally wanting to be a good steward. We have a lot of folks come in and just wanting to know how they can improve their property. Another just side note, if your land is in a trust or multiple owners, just make sure everyone's on the same page. We've had a lot of folks come in as one member of a trust, get an application and work through the planning process, and then the rest of the trustees don't like what they're doing. And then that just wastes a lot of people's time and really just makes everything a bit more complicated on our side of things. So typically a single point of contact is best with signing authority if that's the case. So now to get into kind of what's covered. So this is just a list of the first, I don't know, dozen or so, or however many is up there of practices that is eligible through our programs that I, just thought of within a minute or two. So, brush management, herbaceous weed management, that's your invasive species, forest stand improvements, any harvest, timber stand improvement, any small scale TSI work. If you're looking to do a lot of habitat work, I mean, if you look up there, wildlife habitat planting, early successional habitat, upland wildlife habitat management, plenty of opportunities there. If you live in a high deer browse county and you're looking to plant trees, we even potentially can cost share some exclusion fence so you can get some regeneration back in your forest. Another side note here is if all the stuff sounds really neat, but you don't want to engage into a federal contract, we can give that conservation technical assistance free of charge. So if you just want to know how to do something, you can still go through the planning process with one of our conservationists and get all the necessary information on how to do something, but just not get involved in a federal contract as well. So got a few examples here. First one, you're looking to do some forest stand improvement. If you do have a stewardship plan already wrote, on page 2, there's typically a management practice summary. So here I kind of outlined in 2029, this landowner has single tree selection harvest. So what can NRCS help with? We can help get a professional forester out there to mark the stand so it's done sustainably and right. What if it's too small to attract a logger? A lot of landowners, parcels are getting smaller and smaller. We potentially can help you kind of compensate for a logger's time to come in there and still harvest that, so your forest concerns are still being addressed, and make sure that you still have healthy and productive forests going forward. Second example, invasive species management. I think on that poll, I think the number one practice that was hit was controlling invasives. So look at your management practice summary again, you see invasive species control. And if you go down kind of the stand descriptions, you can see that typically they outline what species. So any of the species you see here listed kind of on the lower part of the slide, is all eligible species for us to look to assist you in that management. You can also contract this for 3 consecutive years through our program. So if you've done any invasive species management, typically you don't get rid of it in 1 year. It takes a few years to really kind of tone it down. So we have that scenario through I guess both programs. We also have multiple payment scenarios for cost share. If you have a dense infestation, yeah, we'll pay you more to get rid of that or at least manage it versus, something that maybe 5% of your ground cover is invasive species. This is also one of the practices that's best combined with another conservation activity. So we like to see if you're going to do invasive species management, we look to kind of combine that maybe with a forest stand improvement or a tree planting so you actually establish better regeneration or a further level of conservation going forward permanently. My third and last example is tree and shrub planting. So look at your forest management plan. You see a hand plant, whatever species. Is that eligible? Sure, it is. What can NRCS help with? We can help with your planting methods, how you're going to prep the site, and deer protection. Do you need a tube or do you need a deer fence? Do you need to pick species that are less tolerable to deer? We can all help you with that. Typically, these plans do recommend what trees get planted, but if they don't, we have trained NRCS staff to help you with that as well. A few other kind of side notes is if you're not, if you're looking to maybe do some crop field conversion or you have a fallow field or anything like that you're looking to put trees into, that technically doesn't need a plan, but we can also still assist with that. Then the question about native and introduced species always come up. For the most part, we're only looking at native species of Wisconsin, actually of your county. So there are some exceptions to that, but I'm not going to go on that too much today because there's a lot of kind of fine print on that. So that's all I got. I don't know if we're holding questions till the end or not, but yeah, there's my contact information. Feel free to reach out anytime.
Yeah, why don't we wait until the end to do questions?
Sounds good. Guess I'll pass it over to Jeff now.
Sounds good. That was great, Dan. Super good information. Saved me a little bit of time to focus on some of the Wisconsin Forest Landowner Grant stuff. So again, my name is Jeff Sorensen. Everybody see it should say Wisconsin Forest Landowner Grant Program. Is that good? So again, my name's Jeff Sorensen. I'm the DNR Private Lands Forester here in Marathon County. Each county across the state has a similar position forester with those kind of work description, private landowner assistants. So those guys are going to be or gals are going to be the folks that you want to talk to kind of start this process, similar to what NRCS has in terms of all the local field offices. So it's a pretty easy program to get involved with. And there's a lot of similarities with our program and Dan's program. So pretty straightforward. I won't go into maybe as much detail as Dan did, just because almost virtually everything that Dan talked about, we do that as well with our program. So our program is called the Wisconsin Forest Landowner Grant Program, WFLGP for short. And like all the government agencies, we like to shorten it up and use an acronym. So we call it WFLGAP. So if any of your foresters or folks are helping with that, and they call it WFLGAP, you'll know what they're talking about. So it sounds like most of you have had stewardship plans developed or in the process of that. So it's a good time to think about maybe what you can do with some of the things in that plan, and that's what we'll talk about tonight in terms of signing you up for WFLGAP. And it's fairly easy process. Simple as contacting your DNR Forester and just going through a one-page application process. The requirements for our program, essentially, you can see it on here. I don't know if everybody can see it. It's probably small on your screen, but you have to own at least 10 acres of contiguous acres of forest land and not more than 500, and then have a stewardship plan in place, which a lot of you, sounds like you probably do. So kind of the first step, that's probably a good thing to do. If you've had your stewardship plan already developed, is maybe just touch base with your plan writer, your consulting forester who wrote that plan. Sometimes those folks will actually be able to help you with implementing tree planting or timber stand improvement or invasive control, that kind of thing. So sometimes it's easy just to stay with the person that you've worked with the plan development. So that's just streamlines it a little bit. After that, you will have to contact your DNR Forester. The easiest way to do that, if you have a stewardship plan already, on the last page of your stewardship plan should be the contact info, kind of in that bottom right-hand corner of the DNR Forester in your county that approved the plan. Chances are that'll be the forester that you're going to want to work with in terms of the signing up for the cost share program. So pretty simple. If you don't have a plan in place already, then you can find DNR foresters in another way. Simplest thing to do is just whatever Google search engine you use, just type in Wisconsin DNR Forester Assistance Locator, and that should come up with this page. And similarly, pretty easy to do. I'm just going to use Marathon County for this one. So you type in or pull down menu, just find your county, and then to find the DNR Service Forester, you just want to click on this button, DNR Service Forester, scroll down, hit search, and it should come up with your forester. In this case, in Marathon County, we've got, because we're such a big county, we've actually got 2 service foresters here. So I'm on the right side there, or on the right side of the county, east side, and cover those specific townships. So each one of the county foresters across the state should be able to be found using this method. So pretty simple. And then the next one, you can find a little bit more about the Wisconsin Forest Landowner Grant Program. Simple search would be Wisconsin DNR and then WFLGP, WFLGP. And then you get to this page. This is just a good summary of our cost share program. Gives the ins and outs, eligibility, that thing, all that stuff initially. Kind of describes some of the broader practices that we cost share. Johanna's program that gave out free stewardship plan preparation will also cost share that for a 50% rate. And just to emphasize, most of our practices, when you sign up, will be approximately a 50% reimbursement or cost share with those plans. You'll know in advance kind of your grant amount. So it's a good way to get a plan developed. So at any rate, broad variety of practices. Typically, our practices are limited to these priority 1 practices, and these priority 2 practices don't typically get cost shared. We do have good news. Recently got a bigger federal grant pot of money to use, so our process will be a little bit different going forward, but will also be a really good way to get your practices funded right now. So if you do have a tree planting or invasive control thing. Looks like most people, those were kind of the top two things that, according to the poll. Now would be a great time to do that. We don't really have a waiting list like we normally do. So really good time to get on that and get your application in. So, so you're working with your DNR Forester. Simple thing to do. You can talk to him and they can send you this grant application form. But if you've found the website and you're here, you can just click on the link and it'll come up with a simple application. Just one page, fill out your normal contact info, where your land is located, answer a few simple questions about if you've had wiffle gap grant before, sign it and date it, and then in the process with this, you'll be talking with your DNR Forester, describing what you want to do. So there'll be that same interaction I think that Dan talked about in terms of either a site visit or just describing what you wanted to do. DNR Forester fills out this back page, pretty simple process from our perspective. And then we submit that to our wiffle gap program leader and they will approve it and get you on the waiting list. And that's really the process involved in doing that. So it's pretty simple. Just to focus on some of the process timeline of that. Talked about that federal grant that we got before our kind of batching periods when we awarded grants was typically kind of confined to the August 1st date. So we didn't have nearly as much money. So oftentimes you'd have to wait quite a bit longer than you will have to now. So the way this works now, if you were to say tomorrow you call your DNR Forester and kind of get that ball rolling, as long as you have your application in and are on the waiting list by May 1st, you'll, or sorry, by June 1st, you will have almost assured getting your award by August 1st. So fairly quick turnaround with that. So just try to make sure that you get in your grant application or wiffle gap application by June 1st, and like almost guaranteed you'll have a grant awarded. So the way the grant works, when the DNR Forester fills out that application, we have certain limits that we cost share different things, like a tree planting, for instance. You might, there's a set amount that you would get cost shared depending on if you're doing like a tree planting with conifers or using a machine to do that. At any rate, once you get that award letter, which would be August 1st coming up, would know exactly what your award is. And then you can go ahead and start the work process. You don't want to do any of the work before you get that award letter. So that's kind of the one condition that you want to be aware of. So once you get that award letter and confirmation of your grant, you can go ahead and contact if you're using folks to do the work for you, whether it's a invasive control, tree planting, that kind of thing. The nice thing about the DNR program is you can also cost share your own labor up to $15 an hour. So it's a good way to get reimbursed for your time for doing different practices like that. So pretty simple process with that. And Dan talked about kind of that timeline in terms of how you should prepare for doing the same kind of thing. You're wanting to develop goals. If you haven't had a stewardship plan approved already, it's good to sit with a forester, whoever's writing your plan, to get kind of those things down on paper. Once you have that stewardship plan approved, you're eligible to qualify for wiffle gap. So works out pretty well. What else? I think most of these practices that we have listed were listed under Dan's list as well. So most things you can think of that you'd want to do with your woods are going to be cost shared. Everything that Dan talked about, from tree planting to fencing to invasive control, all kind of, if you can dream it, you can probably find cost share available for it. So pretty nice deal. The other thing that you have to do that I forgot to mention in part of this process is you have to fill out a W-9. Essentially, the cost share money that you get is considered normal income. So the DNR requires that you fill out a W-9, which is basically a tax form that you'll have to do before you get awarded that. And then once you get awarded that letter, you can go ahead and start your practice. Typically, the plan that you have will detail what you need to do, and follow that plan. Get advice from us in terms of specifics as well. Like the NRCS folks, we have all our free services are free of charge. Again, like NRCS, if you don't want to get cost shared or under this program, we're able to help you know how to do that. So really pretty similar kind of parallel services that we provide. And then with our program, we've got a nice little form you can use to kind of time and date your purchases, keep your receipts, that kind of thing. We're a little bit different from the NRCS in that way. We actually, at this point, kind of reimburse people this way. We're going to more of a flat rate system very soon, I think, like NRCS. So once you like their program, once you get everything approved, you'll get a pre-approved amount. But at any rate, that's about all I have. So I guess if that works,
That's great.
Stop sharing.
Thank you. So we had a couple of questions in the chat, and so I just wanted to give you all an opportunity to talk about it. One of the questions ended up being for both of you of, can you talk about what the cost share amount is if selected? Dan, do you want to go first?
Yeah, it depends. There's a few variables involved. So like for a tree planting example, so there can be a different rate for hand planting hardwoods versus conifers, machine planting, those two. So we have different rates for different practices. So I can't really give you like a broad number, but they're all cost shared by those kind of limitations of each practice. So I think NRCS is similar. So
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly how we go about things too. I did put a link in the chat for the payment rates for our environmental quality incentives program. We have a bunch of different scenarios under every single practice. So, yeah, tree planting is a perfect example. There's, half a dozen ways to go about it, and we have probably half a dozen different scenarios we could potentially pay you for. For our conservation stewardship program, that's a little bit different because we're paying an annual payment instead of practice by practice. So that's calculated a little bit differently. And just work with a conservationist in one of our field offices, and they'll be able to draft up those cost estimates for you. Or I guess how much cost share you will get.
Good. So it sounds like you should reach out to your local folks in both cases to get more information. We did also have a couple of questions that I think are similar about, what is the best way for a landowner to apply for state and federal grants and interface the possible projects? And basically, can you apply for both of them at the same time?
you can apply for both, but you can't get cost shared for both. So you can kind of, cover your bases. Specifically with us right now, our turnaround time's a little quicker, I think, than normal. So there's benefits to, signing up for both. And that way, if you get pressured for both, you can kind of pick and choose. You can't get paid by both. You can't double dip. But there's different ways to go about it, but that's certainly fine. The big thing I think for the two programs, so there's NRCS, I think gives a better payment for tree planting, I think, than the DNR does. And so you kind of it's actually not a bad idea to kind of contrast and compare. A little bit more legwork, but there's nothing wrong with that for sure.
Yeah, he pretty much hit everything. Nail on the head for that. Yeah, it just can't overlap on the same footprint.
Just kind of related to that, if you have a project and then you make progress on it, for example, invasive species, could you apply for one program for part of an invasive species management project and then apply to a different program for a different part of that project?
Yeah, so yeah, like I said, if it's not on the exact same footprint, like if you want to do an EQIP contract or application for one part of your property and then a wiffle gap for the other, yeah, that's totally fine. Yeah.
Okay, and then we had another question. I think, Dan, this one might be more for you. Are the funds currently available, or is there going to be dependent on what is going on at the federal level? Just wondering because of the current volatility there.
Yeah, so I can't really speak much on that. Honestly, I don't know much at my level. For the most part, we are functioning as normal. Everyone can read the news and, there's some funding that is paused, not canceled. So that's really all I can speak on right now. And honestly, I don't know much at all. So we're functioning as normal. So yeah.
Our state funds are actually committed already. So and I don't remember if I told you, but there's we got like a $3 million grant amount that normally we get like a fourth of that probably annually. So we've got the next several years to spend that amount with practices. So signing up, and then there's a window, typically a 2-year window that we give you to complete those practices, and they can be extended as well. But for that, I guess it's a rarity for us to have this much money to give out. So it's a good time to look into the DNR Wiffle Gap program for sure.
And so it kind of sounds like you all both foresee some funding for the next 5 years, because that was one of the questions about the outlook for the next 5 years.
Yeah, for my side of things, there's definitely, going to be programs like we fund, we have local work group money that, historically that's what we've always funded. There's nothing saying that's going to go away. We've seen kind of a surge in NRCS applicants last few years because of our Inflation Reduction Act money that we were awarded. So that's a lot of the news right now. I'm talking about that being paused. So, but we're really going back to how, doing business how we used to. So before that, so there's going to be money around. It's just maybe a little bit more competitive what it has been in the last couple of years.
Okay, great. Well, I want to give you all the chance to ask perhaps more specific questions that you might have if you're in the process of applying or getting ready to apply. So I think we're going to move into breakout groups. And so if you go down, but we are hitting about the 7:30 hour, and so I want to respect all of your time. So thank you so much, Jeff and Dan, for coming here and answering our questions. I learned some new things, and so that was great too, for me even. So yeah, and then I hope you all will join us next week. We are going to be talking about how to hire a natural resource professional, and we'll have a panel of some folks who can kind of talk you through that part of the process. So yeah, have a good night, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Yep. Take care, everybody.
Take care, everybody.